Welcome, everybody, to the Genesis Project Podcast. Business principles for beginners from the School of Hard Knocks. They say that success leaves clues. In this podcast, we're going to discover the clues that it leaves behind, and we're going to start at the very beginning. We'll get into the weeds of how the guests of the show came up with their business ideas, the why behind their business ideas, how they dealt with setbacks and failures, what keeps them pushing forward, and the emotions behind it all. Everyone wants to start a business, but many are held back by something that keeps them from starting. We'll learn what it takes to get to the next level of business and beyond, and we're learning together through different principles of people who graduated from the School of Hard Knocks. So, grab you a pen, some paper, and a highlighter to take notes, because class is in session. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the Chancellor Bernard Gleaton. I just want to take a quick moment just to let you guys know that I really appreciate you guys for checking us out here at the Genesis Project Podcast. Business principles for beginners from the School of Hard Knocks. All right. Now, the reason why I'm coming to you guys is because, one, I wanted to let you guys know that I want you to share, like, and comment to spread the word. Spread the word to everybody that you know who is an entrepreneur or who is trying to be an entrepreneur, because we always got something special for them. If they are trying to become successful, we got the keys to success from our guest professors. So it's always good for you guys to spread the word for them to get those keys of success as well. The second thing I wanted to let you guys know is that we now have a store where you can buy ebooks and courses. We have online courses and ebooks to help you become an entrepreneur or take your business to the next level as an entrepreneur. All right. You can check that out at www.genesisprojectpodcast.com. All right. So let's go ahead and get into the classroom so that we can listen to this new lesson that our new guest professor has for us today. So I will see you guys in the hallways. Welcome, everybody, to the Genesis Project Podcast. My name is Bernard Gleaton, and I am the Chancellor as well as the host of the Genesis Project Podcast. And again, let me welcome you to the School of Hard Knocks. So I have a wonderful guest that is about to come onto the show. And before I forget, I have to let you guys know that I still have some of these Genesis Project Podcast t-shirts that I am planning on giving out at some point. So stay tuned for the details and you will hear about it. And maybe you will get you an opportunity to have a shirt just like this as well. But without further ado, let me talk to you guys about my next guest. When I was planning for this season, I wanted to make sure I go out and at least try to find me a lawyer or a business lawyer who could talk about the business laws and everything like that to come onto the show and really answer some questions that I had that I think that pretty much all of you guys may have had. So without further ado, let me bring into the classroom guest professor Romesh. Say what's up to the class.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm super excited for this conversation.
Oh man, I'm happy that you're around. And I have to say, yeah, I wasn't going to try to butcher your last name, so
it's all good. It's all good. Listen, I've been in courtrooms, and so the joke I always make is that the bark is always worse than its bite. It's one of the things where my background is Sri Lankan, and in Sri Lanka we try and make things as difficult as possible for people to pronounce. So that's why it's so long, and that's why it has so many syllables.
Okay. Yep, I'm still not going to give it a shot. Just out of respect for you, it's all good. So with that being said, I again want to welcome you to the classroom. I want you to tell the classroom a little bit about yourself, and then we can go ahead and jump right into it, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Romesh Atirachi. I'm a lawyer or an attorney for you American folks. Been practicing business law for almost a decade. And my story actually starts overseas. I was born in Sri Lanka. I lived overseas for 15, 16 years, and then started my career as a lawyer about 10 years ago. So, yeah, and I mean, look, my background as an immigrant, as a person of color, brings a bit of a unique approach to how I look at things and how I see the role of a lawyer. And so I'm looking forward to sharing my insights with you.
That's awesome. Awesome. So, for everybody in the classroom, I just want to let you guys know that this brother right here is actually from across the bridge from me. I am in Detroit. He is in Toronto. And actually, across the bridge is Windsor. And then a little further down is Toronto. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, he's a neighbor to me, I guess you could say.
Well, I went to law school in Windsor. I mean, like at some point in time, we were neighbors. So
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. That means you was able to see the fireworks that Detroit puts off every year for not New
all
Year's,
the time, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, for the 4th of July. Yeah, so that's awesome. That's awesome. So with that, I like to ask all of my guests this question here, which is, what is your Genesis moment? And before we get into that, maybe you guys are new to the class. Maybe you're new to this podcast. Let me explain to you what the Genesis moment is. The Genesis moment is when you come to a fork in your road and you can go right or you can go left. But you can see what your life could be like beyond those first steps. So it don't have to be good, don't have to be bad. So example of a Genesis moment for me would be me starting a show. That's a Genesis moment. Me getting married. That's another Genesis moment. Another Genesis moment is me trying out for the CFL 4 years removed from high school. That is a Genesis moment. And I forgot to tell you about that. So
I was gonna say we will chat about that. That's awesome.
yeah, I know we'll probably bring that up later on in this lesson here. But I want you to go ahead and tell us, what is your Genesis moment?
So I think life will always, and I think you've articulated well. There's so many Genesis moments you'll have in life, right? Like whether it be getting married or having kids. One of the things that when I was thinking about this question, one of the things that I think will be relevant to the class is the idea of having Genesis moments in crisis, right? And so the Genesis moment I'm going to talk to you is about a time when I was in crisis, where I'd been practicing law for about 5 or 6 years, and there was the fork in the road that I had to make was whether I was going to choose practicing law with my existing firm or whether I was going to make a decision to choose to go out on my own and start my own law firm. And I think this is something that everybody will face just before they either choose to leave their existing job to start a new business. That in and of itself is a Genesis moment. But for me, that moment was frankly the result of a mental health crisis, right? So I was in a place where I wasn't really feeling good about myself. I wasn't really feeling good about where my position was in life. And I had a decision to make as to whether I was going to continue practicing law as an employee or whether I was going to choose to practice law as a business owner and start my own firm. And I think the challenge for me, the Genesis moment, I didn't really know what that future would look like if I started a business. I started my own law firm, but I did know that if I was going to practice law in that current environment, I was still going to be stressed out, a lot of anxiety, and I really wanted to be in a place where I could actually tend to my mental health needs. And that's when I chose to start up my own law firm. And it's been an interesting journey and one filled with lots of lessons, but I wouldn't regret it.
Wow, that is amazing. And that's one of the things that really pulled me into inviting you onto the show, because of the fact that, one, yes, you are a lawyer or an attorney, but two, you have some type of history with a business, with being an entrepreneur, And I never really figured, or I never really thought about how lawyers, when they go out and start their own firm, I never thought about it from a business standpoint. I just looked at it like, oh, you just go chase people down, or people come and find you and hire you, and then, that's it. But, now that you mention it, there are so many things that you as a lawyer or as your own law firm have to put in to actually get people to come in. That's like running a business.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, and I think this is something which more lawyers could do more learning. I think the challenge is that the only difference between a law firm as a business and any other type of business is the services we provide. So we talk about customer journeys, right?
Mhm.
So customer journey, there are three questions. How do customers find you? How do they use you? And how do they remember you? When it comes to legal services, the only thing that's different is how do they use us? How do they find us? You still do it by the referrals, digital advertising, traditional advertising, whatever. How do they remember you? It's still like surveys, closing a file. All we're doing is provide legal services.
Right.
The only thing that differentiates lawyers from another type of business is that we provide legal services. In every other respect, we're exactly the same business.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm believing that. I'm believing that.
Yeah,
So I know you have this thing, and I really like it. And I actually there's a lot of things that I've seen from my research that I'm really happy to bring up and ask you questions about
sure, yeah.
because I think you do have a fresh perspective when it comes to just business and law in general, right?
Yeah.
But one of those things is from a law standpoint, how can you modernize the business? Because I know you talk a lot about um,
Yeah.
modernizing. I want you to go ahead and tell us how can you modernize a business from a law standpoint?
I think this is a challenge, I think, which most lawyers themselves struggle with, right? And this is certainly a challenge I struggled with early on when I started up my practice. I think we're living in a time of really rapid change, whether it be socially, economically, or technologically. And so when we talk about modernization, I think we talk about two things. One, what does modernization look like, and what is technology's role in that process,
Mm,
right? I don't know. I mean, like, look, like the lawyer's role when it comes to the modernization of a business is two or threefold. First, I think it's how we look at the business model. So right now, when we look at how businesses generate revenue, the majority of businesses generate revenue either through the sale of a product or through the sale of a service or the provision of a service, right? When we talk about the modernization of a business, we're talking about the other ways that businesses can generate revenue other than through the sale of a product or the sale of a service. So that
okay.
could look like licensing arrangements where a business got some intellectual property that they're licensing out to somebody else.
Hmm.
Looking at different ways of structuring your business model. So right now, the the big thing right now is subscription models, right?
Right.
Everybody, the grandmother's changing their model to subscription,
Right.
and so a lawyer can help you create those models, right? So that's on the business model side. I think a lawyer can also help when it comes to changes in terms of privacy law. So right now, you're seeing people in Europe and in the European Union changing the way that companies can use the private information of others, right?
Hmm.
The American government, as you probably are aware, has started launching lawsuits against Facebook and Google about how they use user data in their
Hmm.
services. And so a lawyer can help navigate those types of changes in legislation. But I think the most important way that a lawyer can help bring value to a business is simply by helping business owners make better decisions. And that's
Mm.
historically been the value of a lawyer, helping businesses make better decisions, making informed decisions. But I think you're going to see a lawyer play more of this role in terms of reducing risk, right? Especially because in an age of rapid change, what it also means is that the risk profile is changing more rapidly as well. And so a lawyer can help you identify those risks and identify what actions you need to take in response to those risks. Does that make sense?
It does. That makes a lot of sense. You know, along the same lines of the whole modern lawyer, you have these commitments that I've read, which is strategic, accountable, valuable, tech competent, and empathetic. Can you explain on those
Sure.
commitments?
Sure. And I mean, this comes back on my philosophy that lawyers really should be close to, be very similar to that of their clients, right? So I used to do work for people who are fairly wealthy, and with that wealth, these clients had the propensity to treat their staff like crap. And so it's become really important to me that I have clients that I actually like to be around and be friends with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started thinking about what should the role of a lawyer be, for me, a lawyer has to be accountable to the client, right? So that means that if a client wants something done by X date, the lawyer is accountable to either saying, yes, I'll get it done by X date, or alternatively saying, I can't get it done by X date,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or if a mistake is made, owning up to it, but not only owning up to it, but also fixing it. So it's the idea that if I'm let's say I made a mistake somewhere, it's the
Mm-hmm.
idea that, hey, client John Doe, I've made the mistake, but here I've fixed it. I
Right.
think that's what the client is looking for. You know what I'm saying?
Are you tired of being bogged down by HR tasks? Well, it was Gusto to the rescue. Their HR software is like a superhero for small business owners. It helps you manage payroll, benefits, and HR compliance with ease. Plus, it's so simple to use, even a penguin can figure it out. Not that penguins are known for their business savvy, but they are pretty smart birds. So why wait? Give Gusto a try and watch your HR tasks melt away like ice cream on a hot summer day. Check it out at our resource page at genesisprojectpodcast.com/resources. Yeah, I do. I do. I think the fact that you actually have these particular commitments that's upfront and centered actually drives home the idea of you not just out to get my money or
Yeah.
get your clients money. You know what I mean? Like you're actually a strategic partner. And with that being said, I didn't get a chance to jot this down, but I want you. We all know having a lawyer is pretty important when it comes to just all types of matters of life and things of that nature. But just for a brief moment, I want you to kind of expound on why it's important for you to have a lawyer when you have a business or want to be a business or entrepreneur, business owner, what have you.
Like, you know what? The running joke in law school between me and my friends was that we could never afford ourselves. And so, and so, and even in the practice of law, I always have some prospect, some clients saying, oh, you know what, like, it's too expensive. And I think a lot of business owners don't really understand the value of a lawyer. And that's all. And I've come to, for me at this point in my journey, I've actually come to say that that's okay. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason being is that we as a legal profession, we've just done a very bad job of articulating our values. And so what I would say in response to your question is that the value of a lawyer is fundamentally intangible, right? It's not something like, and the value of a lawyer is in the reduction of risk. Risk is intangible. You can't touch
Mm-hmm.
risk. And risks aren't realized in the short term, risk is realized in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
So the value of a lawyer is created not through, it's a construct of better decision making. It's the idea that if you don't have an answer to a question, you have somebody to go talk to get an answer to the question, right? And in an age of rapid change, where so much of stuff is happening so quickly, having someone to talk to is simply a really important benefit. The thing with a good business lawyer is that they see a lot of businesses. So you're not, and a lot of businesses come to them for advice. So what's a good business lawyer will be able to give you options that they've learned from other clients as well. They come with like a historical baggage, as it were. That experience is valuable.
Right.
And so the value of a lawyer or value of attorney to a business is helping you make better decisions and reducing your exposure to risk. That's the value.
Along with that, I wanted to ask you in particular, we who opt not to go get a lawyer before we start our business or become an entrepreneur, I know there's a lot of things that we may be blind to on the law side
Yeah.
of things, right? So with that being said, what are some basic laws that we as entrepreneurs and business owners should know about?
It's a great question. So so I think there's two questions. So one is that as a lawyer licensed practice in Ontario, I can only give advice on Ontario law.
Yeah.
That being said, I think from a general perspective, I think there are a couple of things that are common in both the American and Canadian jurisdiction. I think the first piece is that you don't have a lawyer. You want to make sure that, and if you look to start a business, it's really important to separate your personal assets from your business assets. And in Canada, that's done by way of a corporation. In the US, there's lots of different ways to do it because you don't want to have your house, your car, your personal assets, your bank account be exposed in the event of a lawsuit, right? So that's the first component. The second component that I always tell my clients is that if you're going to get into a significant contractual relationship with someone, make sure the key elements of the contract are set out in writing.
Mm-hmm.
And having a written contract is a really easy way to make sure that everybody's on the same page when it comes to your liability, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you get into a court dispute, the judge is going to ask, okay, who agreed to what? And it's a lot easier for the court to make the decision if you have a piece of paper to show them. So having a good contract, setting up your business is good. If you're a business owner, it's really important that you know what your legal obligations are to your employees. And in the States, those vary state by state. So, for example, I think it's in Wisconsin, you have the right to fire an employee at will. I think it's called at will.
Yep, at will
in Canada,
employment.
you have to give notice, right?
Yeah.
And so just know the duties that you as the business owner have to your employees, right? We're going into a world right now where, for better or for worse, we believe that it's the idea of the gig economy, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea of like having workers at will, right? Having flexible working relationships it's going to become a very important part of a modern business, right? For better or for worse.
Right. With that being said, I know you kind of brought up the gig economy. So I wanted to know, what is your thoughts on the gig economy as a business owner?
As a business owner, okay, so let me speak to you in terms of two respects. Let me speak to you in terms of the person of color and and as a business owner. So let's start with the business owner because that's the easy one. As a business owner, there's two types of things that you're thinking about when it comes to being a business owner. One is that you want to get quality of work done, and you want to reduce your labor costs as much as possible, right? So what that generally means is that there's a disincentive for you to get into long-term employment relationships when you can simply have a short working relationship in terms of the gig economy and get that same quality work product out.
Right.
Why would I want to commit to hiring somebody 20 hours, 40 hours a week when I know that I right now have only enough work for a 1 to 2 month stint, right? For 5 hours a week, for example. I think that, so as a business owner, there's a lot of disincentives for that. As a business owner that I would like to think is progressive, I really do believe that it's really difficult to find good employees. So for me, I typically like to, if I find a good employee, I actually would do everything in my power to keep them, right? So even if that means paying them higher than normal salary, I would do it because I know that's really difficult to find a similar type of employee, right? This is a very abnormal way to think about things, but it really is difficult to find good employees. It's almost impossible to find. Speaking as a person of color, I think that the gig economy really treats gig workers like crap.
Okay.
And in the sense that you get experience working by working on high quality stuff. And the thing about gig economy, or the gig economy, is that there's no way to measure the quality of the work you get, right? So, for example, if I'm chartered with designing a logo, right? At least initially, I need to get my reviews and ratings up. So I'm going to charge much less than I'm actually worth to get my ratings up, so I can get more work coming in.
Right.
And so I think that the challenge of the gig economy for people of color is that you're not getting high quality work, at least initially. And it makes it that much more difficult for you to get that high quality work. Until you get that high quality work, you're not going to command a higher pay rate. Right? So until that is fixed, I think there's an inequality in that type of gig economy that needs to be addressed and needs to be fixed.
I think you brought up a interesting point for both accounts, right? One for the business owner, as a business owner, entrepreneur, the whole idea is to not in the sense of greediness, but to try to lower the work cost as much as possible so that we can obviously reinvest that back into our business to make more money and things of that nature, right? As a former, again, as somebody of color and as a former gig worker, and every now and then I'm still a gig worker from time to time. I totally understand where you're coming from when you talk about the type of, well, how we're treated as gig workers. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Is much, I would imagine is much the same as the bagger at your grocery store.
Yeah.
You see the person, but you think that you might be better than him because that person is bagging groceries. I've had an experience as a Uber driver and Lyft driver, and I have some amazing stories. Amazing stories. Met some amazing people, right? But then again, I've had those where it's like I should have never accepted this ride. I should have just declined this. I had that feeling. I should have did it, but I didn't do it, and I had to suffer the consequences of a person being in my vehicle who, made things, quite frankly, very uncomfortable and made me very uneasy about them being in my space and things of that nature. So
Yeah.
I definitely understand what you mean by that point. Just to segue from that for a brief moment, you have something called a how you pronounce it, a lawpreneur. Yeah, I want you to go ahead and explain what is that.
Are you tired of spending hours trying to create a sales funnel that actually converts the sales? Well, say goodbye to the headaches and hello to Drop Funnels. Their platform makes it easy to create professional, high converted sales funnels with just a few clicks. And the best part, it's so intuitive, even a 3-year-old could use it. Not that we recommend you getting a 3-year-old to run your business. So why wait? Give drop funnels a try and watch your sales soar to new heights. Check it out at our resources page at genesisprojectpodcast.com/resources.
For my sake as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we're going into a world where, in very traditional cultures, they talk about the idea of there's only 3 types of good jobs: the doctor, the lawyer, and the engineer. And these are called good jobs because of status that's attached to it. I think we're going into an economy where the idea of status isn't as important. We're looking for deliverables, we're looking for outcomes. And when we talk about the law entrepreneurship, it's the idea that lawyers need to design and structure their practices in a way that's relevant to business owners and to the consumers of legal services. And so there's a distinction that I'm drawing between a traditional lawyer that doesn't see that as important versus the law entrepreneur that sees that as important and is actually actively taking steps to figure out ways to adapt their practice to the needs of the modern legal consumer, right?
Yeah.
And it's the idea that lawyers need to learn from each other, and not only from each other, but from other people, to get better at doing their jobs and to be better at supporting the needs of their community. And especially in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
I mean, there's so many businesses right now that need a lawyer, but don't have a lawyer simply because they can't afford one. Right. And I think that's problematic. Right?
How so?
Well, I mean, if you take an example of Detroit, New York. So I used to work in legal aid. I guess you'd call it a public defender.
Yeah.
So it's the idea that you have landlords who would pay high-priced attorneys to redistrict, so that preventing people of color from accessing certain resources, right? So President Trump's father was notable for this. And if you look at the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you had the practice of what were called redlining, where people of color had less access to decent schools, to decent housing, simply because of these practices of redlining. And I think they were also prevented from living in certain areas of the city. Those practices changed because you had the civil rights movement and the Martin Luther Kings and his supporters that changed that. And the reason why they were able to do that was because the people that were fighting had access to a lawyer. They had access to the representation. And we're going into a time where those same needs are being exposed to, but as yet I haven't seen the legal community respond in a similar type of way. So, for example, you have landlords right now that are looking to enforce their leases, even though there's a mandatory shutdown in effect, right? If I can't get people to come into my store to buy my product, how in the world do you expect my business to pay to pay the landlord? Right now, you have, I think, a $600 support payment for a month.
Yeah.
I would assume that
we're about to get another
insufficient. I'm just saying that most people need more than $600 a month to live.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So for example, in Canada, we've got $2,000 a month, and we've had that since March or April. Right? So at $2,000 a month, I think it's the equivalent of your probably $1,200, $1,300 USD. All I'm saying is that the pandemic has really exposed these risks to people who need the help, and a lawyer plays a really important role to making sure that these people's rights are protected.
Right.
Right. And yeah, for better or for worse, that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I think the pandemic has created a unique opportunity. It definitely pulled the shades back a little bit, but it still prevented, or rather, it still created a unique opportunity for us to, for example, a huge company, and let let's just say Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola is a huge company. This pandemic has created a unique opportunity for Coca-Cola to potentially kind of move things down, scale things down a tad bit, and instead of it being as big as a freighter ship on a on the water, it could be now more so like a speedboat. You
Yeah.
know, they could dip and dodge and dart and all that type of stuff that could still run as a corporation of humongous proportions, but is running more effectively, more smarter. You know, and I think with in regards to the money aspect, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I still promote the whole idea of being an entrepreneur. Whether it's you having a hustle on the side, maybe you selling gym shoes, or you know, hot dogs on the corner. You know what I mean? You still have more money coming in. You're not solely dependent on just one source of income, having multiple streams of income and things of that nature.
So I think that the advice that I've typically given both clients and families and friends, is it's really important that every person has the diversification of income they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because if somebody loses their job, you need to have an alternate revenue stream.
Hmm.
And even if it's a small revenue stream, all a business is, it's simply a collection of relationships that you're using to generate revenue.
Hmm.
Right. So whether it be your cooking stuff on the side and delivering it to friends and family, whether it be your clothing, whether it be sharing your insights and wisdom about a certain topic, there are lots of ways to generate revenue. And especially because we live in an age of automation and technology, you should be planning for your job to be redundant.
Right.
And I know I know this is controversial, but you always want to have a plan B or a plan C,
Hmm.
right? And build it out that way,
Right. I think that's an interesting point that you bring up, because I've always felt that I always need to be trying to replace myself, right?
Hmm.
I'll take the podcast, for example, the Genesis Project podcast, for example. In the very beginning, I had to do all of the editing. I had to do all of the social media, right? I had to find the guests, to bring the guests on, the scheduling of the guests, and things of that nature, right? Well, eventually, I would like to, replace myself in one of those jobs, right? So, for example,
Yeah.
I could go and hire a virtual assistant and teach that virtual assistant my process for editing the show, right? And that's a way of me replacing myself. That's one less thing I have to do.
Yeah.
I could go do other things. The time it would take for me to edit used to be, 2.5 hours. And believe you and me, my wife used to make sure I heard about that, because that's time taken away from her, right?
Yeah.
Now that I got me a process that significantly shortened that time frame from 2.5 hours to, maybe an hour, 45 minutes on a good day, right? Now
Yeah.
I can send that off to my virtual assistant. My virtual assistant would do the editing, and I no longer have to do that. Now I have more time to spend with my wife, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny that you brought that up because I know that you actually have something going on. You actually have free tools and you actually show people way of how you can generate more money at your business. I want you to go ahead and talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, sure. So this is something that I'm actually piloting as a result of the pandemic. So let's go back a couple of years. So when I started my firm, I wanted to try and figure out how I could use technology to reimagine the delivery of legal services. And so the thing is that there's so much, and it's also because there's so much of information that's really valuable to clients that are that can be authored by a lawyer, but is actually got nothing to do with legal advice. And so, by way of example, like how to start, like a startup business checklist, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what's emerged from, so I started looking at technology and all this type of stuff, and what I'm starting to doing is starting to actually creating like online content and online courses that you could watch at your own leisure, at your own schedule, that'll actually take you through some key exercises you need to be doing before you start a business.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, we've got one right now called the Value Proposition Workshop,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll go over how you can actually start creating a value proposition for your business, right? And my goal is by giving you this information, you're in a better position to build out a business to help you that helps you succeed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And again, so these tools that you've got is basically free tools that you could download at your own convenience whenever you want to. And it's actually going to evolve in more of like a resource library. So you'll have both free tools and paid courses and calculators and stuff that's all available just to help you succeed. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's so what you're seeing right now, just the free tools, but it's going to evolve into a whole resource library.
And just for those that's listening, could you give out the website to those free tools?
Oh yeah, sure. So it's www.bilawyers.ca/free.
Okay.
And so that's going to be where you get all the tools that you need for your site. So again, it's bilawyers, LAWYERS.ca/free.
Are you tired of drowning in a sea of receipts and invoices? Well, it's QuickBooks to the rescue. Their accounting software is like a life raft for small business owners. It helps you stay organized, track your finances, and helps you make smart business decisions. Plus, it's so easy to use, even a sloth can learn it. Not that we're calling you slow, but sloths are notoriously chill. So why wait? Give QuickBooks a try and start selling smoothly through the world of business. Check it out at our resource page at genesisprojectpodcast.com/resources.
I wanted to try and figure out how I could use technology to reimagine the delivery of legal services. And so the thing is that there's so much, and it's also because there's so much of information that's really valuable to clients that are that can be authored by a lawyer, but is actually got nothing to do with legal advice. And so, by way of example, like how to start, like a startup business checklist. So, what's emerged from, so I started looking at technology and all this type of stuff. And what I'm starting to doing is starting to actually creating like online content and online courses that you could watch at your own leisure, at your own schedule, that'll actually take you through some key exercises you need to be doing before you start a business. So, for example, we've got one right now called the Value Proposition Workshop,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll go over how you can actually start creating a value proposition for your business, right? And my goal is by giving you this information, you're in a better position to build out a business to help you that helps you succeed, right? And again, so these tools that you've got is basically free tools that you could download at your own convenience whenever you want to. And it's actually going to evolve in more of like a resource library. So you'll have both free tools and paid courses and calculators and stuff that's all available just to help you succeed. And so that's so what you're seeing right now is just the free tools, but it's going to evolve into a whole resource library.
And just for those that's listening, could you give out the website to those free tools?
Oh yeah, sure. So it's www.bilawyers.ca/free.
Okay.
And so that's going to be where you get all the tools that you need for your site. So again, it's bilawyers, LAWYERS.ca/free.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. And I'm sure the class is taking notes and is actually going to go check you out.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
So with my background being in mostly tech, the idea of you using technology first, as a geek, that makes me extremely happy.
I think so. Let's see if it works.
Yes. I think that there's things that technology affords us the opportunity to do things that otherwise, in the past we would have never had the opportunity to do.
Yep.
We would have never thought about it. The whole idea of automation, and just a quick stab here. Automation is just having a system in place that automatically, makes your job easy, right? So a example of that is, well, one of my favorite examples is Henry Ford. Again, because I'm from Detroit, I have to use Henry Ford as an example. The idea that he had when it comes to building a car, yeah, he used to do it all by hand, right? He used to have people build it all by hand. But it wasn't until he came up with the idea of having the assembly line where he automated that process, right? So again, we go back to what I mentioned earlier about how long it used to take me to edit a episode. For a 1 hour episode, it used to take me about 2.5 hours. Now, because I have this process, it's an automated process that I could shorten the time from 2.5 hours to just, an hour, 45 minutes at the most. Same with Henry Ford.
So I have a different automation, and I think you like it. So it's the idea of delegating a task or a process to somebody or something that delivers some sort of value to you and or the customer. All automation is just delegating a task or a process. And in order to delegate, and I've got a whole spiel on this, like in order to delegate, you have to have some sort of strategy or intention to give something to somebody else.
Yeah.
Right? So, case in point, you have a process. You said, I can take this process, I can give it to somebody else. That's what you did. Right? And it gives you value because it saves you time or money.
It does. Well, yeah. It keeps my wife happy, I'll tell you that.
I think that's the reason. That's one big reason why we all delegate.
That's the main reason. Yes. Man, I'll also say that, and again, the introduction of technology is really huge because it helps us to actually do that, right? I've had clients before who did not want anything to do with technology, who thought that technology was the devil, and I've also had those weird clients who might be onto something, but then again, it might not be onto something when it comes to technology and the government listening in and all that type of stuff. Regardless of the fact, it makes my wife happy, right? if by me utilizing technology, it is ultimately making things easier, right? And that's the whole thing, which is to make things easier for you and not just tougher and more difficult, right?
Yep.
So with that being said, I know your time is valuable, so we're getting down to the last few questions. Sure. I want you to tell us what is the one thing that you wish you knew before you started your business?
Huh. The one thing I think the one thing would be the journey is more valuable than the destination.
Mm,
I think you start a business and you have any idea. So going back to your first question about the Genesis project being, you have some visibility into these steps.
yeah,
Running a business is unpredictable. You don't
yeah,
know what happens, what's going to happen. It's difficult to. Case in point, whoever would have thought about the pandemic happening
right.
and all these sort of like different things happen. I think the best and the worst part about running a business is its unpredictability
Hmm.
and learning how to roll with the punches, to be patient, to be kind to yourself. Yeah, success in business isn't quick, no
Yeah,
matter which internet guru you talk to.
yeah,
It takes time, it takes effort, and a whole lot of hours. But it comes slowly, right? So actually, you know what? I know what it is. The one thing I wish you knew: gather a team of advisors. Your
mm,
success as a business owner will come down to your community.
mm, mm.
That is the one thing I wish I knew. When I started off, I thought I could do it alone. No, you can't. The one thing I wish I knew was the importance of having a good team of advisors to help you build. And it's not just lawyers, like a good team of advisors.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that sounds like you're speaking from experience there.
Yeah.
I think is the fact that you have to consider using or actually finding you advisors and mentors and things of that nature. I think them downloading their experiences, their failures, their setbacks, you know,
Yep,
it can set you up for a tremendous, you know, it can set you on a path where you could just recently learn,
absolutely,
you know.
absolutely.
Because again, now at this point, instead of you trying to figure all this out on your own, now you have somebody you can bounce ideas off of, somebody who's been there, who's done that. And I tell you two things I tell people often. One, while there's people out here who say that they are experts in business, and they very well maybe, right? But you gotta consider that nobody's really a true expert in business. We don't know what we're doing. We're just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping to God that it will stick to the wall. If it sticks to the wall, all right, great. Let me let me work on this, right? And the second thing is, if everything just worked out for us in life, life would just be boring. You know,
Yeah,
life would just be boring. You need those ups and downs. It's more exciting that way, like a roller coaster. Although I'm not much of a roller coaster guy, but I understand
neither am I.
that. See, my point exactly. Life is a roller coaster, and it's there. Are we gonna like it? Nah, not all the time. But again, it's more exciting that way. What do you
That's a
think
good way to
about
think about it. Yeah.
that?
I mean, look, running a business is a roller coaster. Absolutely, I completely agree with that.
Yeah,
I mean, I look even. I mean, this goes back to the value of automation, right? The value of
yeah,
automation is standardizing processes so that the same thing happens over and over again, so it's not a roller coaster.
yeah,
But
yeah,
even then, running a business is chaotic, it's hectic, but it's also a lot of fun,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. It's
Uh,
fun,
yeah,
and you could potentially lose some hair. Maybe bite your fingernails off just a tad bit, but other than that,
yep,
yeah, it's okay.
yeah.
So let me ask you this: what is the biggest mistake that you made as an entrepreneur?
Oof, not having a board of advisors.
Back to the
Yeah,
advice. Okay.
yeah. I look like, and it says something the fact that I, as a lawyer, need a board of advisors,
Mm-hmm.
right? a lot of people think that they can do everything themselves. Don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long and hard slog if you don't have a deposit advisor. So both individually and as a business, have a team of advisors.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest mistake, yeah, absolutely. The biggest mistake, not even a mistake, it's just that you have too much of confidence in yourself.
Right.
And you've got to approach it with a little bit of humility that you don't know everything. Yeah.
You know, I am a hip hop fan, and that reminds me of a specific lyric that was said by the Roots Crew, the legendary Roots Crew, who you
Yep.
could probably see on Jimmy Fallon on the Tonight Show now, right?
Yeah.
Black Thought once said in the song, "No man is an island, but
Yeah.
I'm a castaway," right?
Yep.
And you know why I understand that. My biggest thought after that, after hearing that, one of my favorite lines that he, one of my many favorite lines that he says, it makes me consider, okay, well, do I really want to be a castaway? Yeah, it sounds, you know, less of a hassle to be a castaway. However, to be a castaway means that I can't bounce nothing off of anybody, you know, which means I'm left to believe that my ideas and my thoughts and, you know, my actions is right when it could be wrong, you know, because I have nobody there to tell me, hey man, you that's messed up. You should go apologize, or no, that's not gonna work, or something to that effect. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
It's lonely. And we
Yeah.
as human beings were not built to be lonely.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I like so the thing is that so going back to the question, the biggest mistake is that there are other people that have gone through exactly what you've gone through.
Yep.
You don't need to be that you can it's a choice to be a castaway.
Yep.
It's that choice you're making,
Yep.
right? You can also make another choice. Make the other choice.
Yep. I totally agree with that.
So
What is something personal that you want the class to know about you that can't be found on Google or Wikipedia?
well, thank God I'm not on Google or Wikipedia. So we're okay with there.
At least not to your knowledge.
What I'd say is that one of my best life experiences was backpacking across Ghana and we were going to a rainforest to go see wildlife. They didn't have enough rooms, so they actually rejected us.
Uh-huh.
And we ended up staying on top of mud huts. And it was quite literally the most beautiful experience. And so you'd wake up in the morning to the goats bleeding, like you're sleeping on a mud hut. Most incredible experience. And then quite literally the week after that, I was on top of like the equivalent of your Wall Street in New York, looking down on the world, looking like it was all ants. I'm saying, I know I do not want to be here.
Yeah.
I'd rather be like closer to the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely not going to be found on Google or Wikipedia. All right, one last question.
Sure.
What is the one takeaway that you want the class to leave with this lesson with?
One thing.
You got more, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm saying I mean, I definitely think that it's easy. It's easy. I'm going to go back to the idea of having a community. At least I was brought up with the idea that school is everything and high marks are everything and all that wonderful stuff. Having a good community is so important to your success. Find a good community, whether it be friends, family, advisors. You can't imagine how important a good community is to your success.
Mm, mm.
So, yeah.
You know, I'll tell you this quick story. I'm pretty sure we have enough time for this.
Yeah.
This quick story. As a matter of fact, it kind of goes to the whole CFL thing that I alluded to you earlier. So I am my path of getting here has been very untraditional. The whole idea of, you know, when you play sports, you play sports in little league, and then you go play in high school, and then you go play in college, and then you take a shot at going pro. Well, I did everything except for the whole college thing. I did well in high school, went to school, went to college with intentions on playing in college. Didn't stay in college long enough. We have financial aid, which means the government loans the school money, and then we pay the government back and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't really work out too well for me. So I was able to stay for the first couple of semesters, and after I came back that next year, yeah, financial aid was just gone for me. I used
Right.
up all my financial aid. So I ended up coming back home and having to find other ways, obviously getting a job, penny paying jobs and all that type of stuff. And one day, working at this pizza joint, I'm over at a buddy's house, and tell him how I felt. I didn't like where I was at in my life at that time. I know I'm supposed to be doing something else, bigger and better. I don't know what it is, but I just know I'm supposed to be doing something else. It's about March, May, and he comes across the CFL game being played on television. And I knew it wasn't NFL because training camp haven't started yet and all that type of stuff. I said, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. So I ended up going to try out for the CFL. Did good enough to get picked up by a team and stayed in Canada for a little bit and then came back home. But during that time of me trying out or about to go tryouts was in Dallas, Texas. And 3 weeks before I left to go to tryouts, I was working at a barbecue joint and it got robbed on my shift. So that was 3 weeks going to tryouts. 2 weeks going to tryouts, a cousin of mine passed away.
Oh,
And
geez.
at the time, I was thinking, I don't know if I want to go. After my cousin passed away, I really don't know if I want to go. And the week of me going to tryouts, I get robbed again. And at that point, I just said, all right, that's it. I'm definitely going now. At this point, everything's getting crazy. I might as well go. And so that's when I went and tried out for the CFL. And there was only a
Wow.
handful of people who really, really supported me in that and really pushed me into going and all that type of stuff. So all that to say that I definitely wholeheartedly agree with you when it comes to having that community to be around you. And oftentimes it may not be the community in which you expect it to be.
Right.
You know? So yeah, I totally wholeheartedly agree with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But with that being said, I just want to thank you for coming onto the show and teaching us this lesson. You're welcome to come back into the School of Hard Knocks to teach another lesson. At any point in time you feel you got something got something to teach us, another lesson to teach us, and all that type of good stuff. So for right now, I want you to go ahead, tell the people where they can find you at, how they can get in touch with you, because I know you are in Toronto. My wife and I, we are going to need to get some ketchup chips from you a little later.
Listen, first off, thank you so much for this. This is an incredible experience. You're fantastic. Find me on LinkedIn. This is Romesh, HEPA, and you should see the logo pop up. Find me on Instagram, yeah, lawyers. And then my website, daily.ca. If you need to find me on lawyers, LLC.
Awesome. Awesome. Again, I appreciate you for coming on to the show and for teaching us this lesson. And to you, class, you've heard all of these gems that he dropped. I think everything that he said has been spot on. There is some things that he mentioned today that I'm definitely going to need to try to circle around and try to get done myself. And I think you guys should do the same thing too. So, with all of that being said, you guys know what I like to say around this time. And everything that you chase after, everything that you go after, make sure you chase it with violent action. Until next time, I see you guys in the next lesson.
Bernard.
about 15 years ago. I hated where I was at, and I knew that I was meant for more. Greatness even. I wanted to start a business, and I asked my friends and family, how do I start a business? 90% of them never started a business before, and the 10% that didn't remember what they did. So I went on and earned my bumps and bruises from the School of Hard Knocks. My inspiration for the School of Hard Knocks and the courses that I've created was to reach people that felt the same way that I felt way back when. Like I was destined for more. The purpose of the Genesis Project podcast was to move those same people towards that greatness with the guest professor that comes to the show and learn from their mistakes. This is a call to action to those who are searching for greatness. Join the School of Hard Knocks by commenting, sharing, subscribing, and get this message out to those searching for greatness. Click on the links in the description to get more information. And everything you do, everything that you chase after with violent action. I'll see you in the hallway.